Hey Rayleigh, and anybody else watching, and welcome back to another message from your father. Numbers 30 and 31 today, getting closer to the end. Yesterday we looked at offerings, feasts, the Passover, and the Day of Atonement. Today is vows. We're also going to look at the vengeance on the Midianites and the splitting of the spoils of war from that battle, or from the war with the Midianites. And then I think that leads to something that's incredibly important and often overlooked in the Old Testament. And we'll talk about that briefly. But again, we are in 30 and 31 today. So we'll start with 30. Moses said to the heads of the tribes of Israel, "This is what the Lord commands. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said. When a young woman still living in her father's house makes a vow to the Lord or obligates herself by a pledge, and her father hears about her vow or pledge, but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her father forbids her when he hears about it, none of her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. The Lord will release her because her father has forbidden her. If she marries after she makes a vow or after her lips utter a rash promise by which she obligates herself, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her, then her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband forbids her when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that obligates her or the rash promise by which she obligates herself, and the Lord will release her. Any vow or obligation taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding on her. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow or obligates herself by a pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her and does not forbid her, then all her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband nullifies them when he hears about them, then none of the vows or pledges which came from her lips will stand. Her husband has nullified them, and the Lord will release her. Her husband may confirm or nullify any vow she makes or any sworn pledge to deny herself. But if her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms her vows or pledges binding on her. He confirms them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If, however, he nullifies them after some time after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. These are the regulations the Lord gave Moses concerning relationships between a man and his wife, and between a father and his young daughter, still living in the house. Chapter 31. The Lord said to Moses, "Take vengeance on the Midianites for the Israelites. After that, you will be gathered to your people." So Moses said to the people, "Arm some of your men and go to war against the Midianites to carry out the Lord's vengeance on them. Send into battle 1,000 men from each of the tribes of Israel." So 12,000 men armed for battle, 1,000 from each tribe, were supplied from the clans of Israel. Moses sent them into battle, 1,000 from each tribe, along with Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, who took with him articles from the sanctuary and trumpets for signaling. They fought against Midian as the Lord commanded Moses, and killed every man. Among their victims were Avi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. The Israelites captured the Midianite women and children, and took all the Midianite herds, flocks, and goods as plunder. They burned all the towns where the Midianites had settled, as well as all their camps. They took all the plunder and spoils, including the people and animals, and brought the captives, spoils, and plunder to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and the Israelite assembly at the camp on the plains of Moab, by the Jordan across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet with them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds who returned from the battle. "Have you allowed all the women to live?" he asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from the Lord in what happened at Peor, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now, kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourself every girl who has never slept with a man. All of you who have killed anyone or touched anyone who is killed must stay outside the camp for 7 days. On the 3rd and 7th days, you must purify yourselves and your captives. Purify every garment as well as everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood." Then Eleazar the priest said to the soldiers who had gone into battle, "This is the requirement of the law that the Lord gave to Moses. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, lead, and anything else that can withstand the fire must be put through the fire, and then it will be clean. But it must also be purified with the water of cleansing, and whatever cannot withstand the fire must be put through the water. On the seventh day, wash your clothes, and you will be clean. Then you may come into the camp. The Lord said to Moses, You and Eleazar the priest and the family heads of the community are to count all the people and animals that were captured. Divide the spoils between the soldiers who took part in the battle and the rest of the community. From the soldiers who fought in the battle, set apart as tribute for the Lord 1 out of every 500, whether persons, cattle, donkey, sheep, or goats. Take this tribute from their share and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part. From the Israelites half, select 1 out of every 50, whether person, cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, or other animals. Give them to the Levites who are responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. The plunder remaining from the spoils that the soldiers took was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 women who had never slept with a man. The half share of those who fought in the battle was 337,500 sheep, of which the tribute for the Lord was 675, 36,000 cattle, of which the tribute for the Lord was 72, 30,500 donkeys, of which the tribute for the Lord was 61, 16,000 people, of which the tribute for the Lord was 32. Moses gave the tribute to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part, as the Lord commanded Moses. The half belonging to the Israelites, which Moses set apart from that of the fighting men, the community's half, was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 people. From the Israelites' half, Moses selected 1 out of every 50 persons and animals as the Lord commanded him, and he gave them to the Levites, who were responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. Then the officers who were over the units of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, went to Moses and said to him, Your servants have counted, and the soldiers under our command, and not one is missing. So we have brought as an offering to the Lord the gold bracelets each of us acquired, armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord. Moses and Eleazar the priest accepted them from the gold, all the crafted articles. All the gold from the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds that Moses and Eleazar presented as a gift to the Lord weighed 16,750 shekels. Each soldier had taken plunder for himself. Moses and Eleazar the priests accepted the gold from the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds and brought them into the tent of meeting as a memorial for the Israelites before the Lord. So I really like that verse that chapter because there's a lot of stuff that seems difficult to grasp and difficult to grapple with. And I can hear a lot of unbelievers right now just waiting for an example of why. Why would God do this? Why would God slaughter all these innocent people? Well, that's just the thing, right? Is they're not innocent at all. And in fact, I had to look this up exactly where it was. Genesis 15:16 talks to this. So I'll hop there really quick. Genesis 15:16 says, so this is God talking to Abraham. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. So God knows exactly what people are going to be sent out and knows exactly how bad these people are going to be sinning. So why does God allow it? Well, God gives us choice, right? These people still had a choice. So God gives them the opportunity to repent. And if he's talking with Abraham, he gives them generations to repent, and they don't repent. So again, still, why does God do this? So Deuteronomy also speaks to this, and this is coming next. Deuteronomy 9:4-5. So I'll hop there really quick. Deuteronomy 9:4-5 is, after the Lord your God has driven them out before you, do not say to yourself, the Lord has brought me here to take possession of this land because of my righteousness. No, it is on account of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is going to drive them out before you. It is not because of your righteousness or integrity that you're going in to take possession of their land, but on account of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God will drive them out before you to accomplish what he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's really interesting. People love to decry this and say, oh, what a horrible thing. But they don't look at what these people are doing. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but a lot of these people are sacrificing their children on burning idols. Their own children, they're sacrificing, which has terrifying implications for today. But this is God's judgment. God's using the Israelites to judge his people. It has nothing to do with how good the Israelites are, because they're not. They're not that great, but they are God's chosen people. Just as we Christians are sinners, we are not that great. We are fallen before a holy God, but we recognize that we need that God and we need Jesus to repent. So this is still God using his people to judge. Now we live under a different covenant, right? Jesus says, it is finished. Now what we are to do is spread Christ's name. So the idea of going on a holy war right now is not what we've been called to. We're called to love and to spread God's message and not to dilute his judgment, because that judgment is very real and it is coming to people who don't repent. So people don't like to hear that. This is not always a popular message, but it is a very, very real one. So my prayer for you is that you would be able to navigate this and that you would spend time in prayer about this and recognize how God is working then, or how God worked then and how God is working now and how God uses his people. Anyway, know that I love you so much, and anyone else watching, know that I appreciate you so much as well. And we will plan on seeing you tomorrow night. Have a good one.